Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Entitled People Meets Choosing Beggars with a Touch of Malicious Compliance and a Twist. The backstory. My best friend through high school and I both enlisted in the military. I went Guard, he went Army Reserves. We talked in our senior year about a town a few hours away that had multiple gold mines and an amazing economy. We talked about renting a spot out there and going to work at the mines to save up some cash and get a good start. This was just idealism, and we had no intent to actually follow through. A few years go by, I married my high school sweetheart, and he married some girl I county met. I worked my way up through restaurants while in the Guard, and my district manager offered me a raise, moving expenses, and a promotion within the year if I moved to the gold mining town to open a new restaurant. I jumped on the chance as the pay $40K salary with a promotion to $65K within the year, and $3K for moving was great at 20 years old. This is where the crazy starts. I told my friend, we will call him Jay for jerkwad, that I was getting moved to that town and that my wife and I planned to buy a home there and settle down. He never really got his crap together by this point. His dad died while he was at basic training, and he stayed with me for a good bit. My wife and I felt bad for him and said he could stay with me for a bit while my wife finished college and he could try to make a living there. He got excited thinking it would be his big chance and was so grateful, for a time. We got to Elko, and for the first 4 to 5 months, his wife and I stayed in a long-term hotel there while I waited for my wife to finish the semester and then to pick a home/finish escrow and all. This drained my pocket alongside buying good for the three of us, but Jay would contribute some from his 2 days a month of duty with the reserves, and it helped some. Needless to say, I blew through a lot of my salary taking care of them, and somehow they just couldn't find work. Well, I was hiring for a new restaurant and had to take on over 100 people, so I offered them both a job. They started eagerly, but very quickly realized that being a waiter is more than just writing orders and goofing off. They immediately became a huge issue and would often boast that they were my friends and that they were the best at the job and deserved whatever things they thought themselves entitled to. Their first write-up came within maybe 2 weeks at most. They seemed incapable of doing the most basic things and weren't putting the thought/time into figuring out their job despite me trying to train them and coach them. They made me look terrible. I ended up having to fire them a month and a half or so because they refused to do side work and somehow showed that this restaurant, rhymes with pennies, was too hard for them to handle working for. I left the job to work at one of the gold mines, my work history and ethic having secured me a highly paid and amazing position. At gold mines like this, you get hired as a position, but unless you're an engineer/management, you start off just doing menial labor, think nonstop, shoveling tons of ore for a 12-hour shift. Made military seem like freaking cake. They do this to prove your work ethic. I made it onto a crew in 3 days. Only one person made it before me. We had our own home by now and moved in maybe 2 months earlier. Jay was still with us but had still never found another job. My wife was now with us as well, and he absolutely made her life hell. She and I are Mormon and don't drink/want to go watch the movies they're into. So they get the idea in their head that my wife is public enemy number one. They start talking crap to her and treating her terrible while on at the mines working, rotating shifts, 4 to 5 hours bus round trip and 12-hour shifts, to the point she stopped leaving the room unless it was to make dinner for when I got home. She didn't talk to me until it was getting bad. Here is where Jay and my wife get into a war. Jay doesn't like where we keep our dishes. He rearranged the cups. Faith didn't talk to them anymore, so she put them back and left a note asking not to move our cups. Jay then moves every other wish and waits. My wife told me about things by this point, and I walk into the kitchen after a long shift where I pulled 2 hours overtime on top of my shift and the commute, so I'm like 21 hours into a hellish day. I see Jay's malicious compliance and just, nope. He's been living with us rent-free and eating our food, playing Xbox all day on our TV and taking up the entire living room. I call him in, and he sees me in the kitchen and gets this stupid self-satisfied grin. Cue a huge fight. I ask why the hell he moved everything in my home, despite my wife, and why the hell he couldn't be grateful for the nearly a year of free housing I rent this house for $1,500 a month now. The jobs I got them and they threw away. And why they didn't go to any of the job fairs, how I got my mine job. It should be said that by this point, I also was in a major car wreck, and despite my injuries qualifying me as disabled, I pushed my body to the limits to keep my job and stay the National Guard. He starts screaming, "You have no idea what she's like when you're not here." I replied, "True, but sadly I know exactly what you're like when I'm not here. This is her house, you're just a guest." He then picks up the footrest thing from my nice recliner and chucks it across the room in a tantrum. I tell him it's done. He needs to GTFO now. I won't tolerate him breaking my crap/getting violent. He screams that he'll leave, but "You better help me get my stuff out tonight, or I'm not leaving smugly." I tell him that no, I'm injured and don't owe you a damn thing. Jay yells back, "You're so witch-made, acting like you're all hurt and crap. Freaking female anatomy part." I shoot back, "At least I can provide for my family. Your pregnant wife's going to be living in a box if you're the provider. But then again, I don't know if you could hold it down either." He started getting up in my face, and I told him he could stop threatening me and leave, or I'd grab my gun and ensure his threats stop. He leaves and calls two people he knew nearby that for some reason liked him and his wife. The man in that couple loudly threatened me while grabbing JS crap, but I just sat outside my room, wife was inside it, with my gun holstered on my hips, and let them get their meager belongings and leave. They stole some of our stuff when they left, but it was worth it to get them out. They also picked their nose and left their boogers on their bedroom walls for months apparently. Disgusting freaking goblins. We let one of my co-workers take the extra room they vacated when he lost his home, and by God, he was so much better than my best friend I'd known and helped through losing multiple family members and tried giving him a shot to get ahead in life. Sorry for the super long post, it's cathartic to post TBH. I still can't believe how much of an entitled teabag Jay was. Next one is titled, "My pool is not a motel room." Background: I am a combat veteran and a school teacher at this time, and my wife was a school teacher as well. So, I bought my first house 12 years ago. It was in a low-middle-class neighborhood with a lot of working-class families. My house had a pool in the backyard, and my parents bought me and my wife a hot tub as a wedding/housewarming gift. 2 weeks after moving in, we found a stranger and 6 teenaged kids swimming in our pool when we got home. We will call them entitled mom, entitled daughter, entitled son, and the others I assume to be their friends and her boyfriend. Entitled daughter was about 18 or 19 years old, and her brother about 17. When we told them to get out and get off our property, the entitled mom told me that the previous owner gave them permission to come over whenever they wanted to swim. I explained to her that I was the new owner and that I was not okay with it. I told entitled mom that not only do I not know them, but there is a legal liability for me if they got hurt. She yelled and cried, saying I was being a bad neighbor, selfish, and forcing her kids to sweat in the summer heat. She told me that if they died of heat stroke, it was my fault for not letting them swim in my pool. I told her to get the duck of my property and never return. Fast forward 2 weeks. I had put up a no trespassing sign on my property at multiple spots and had gotten to know many of the not entitled neighbors. They were great and told me to ignore entitled mom and her kids. They told us she was already bad-mouthing us, but no one ever believed her. Now, I start to notice when I wake up in the morning that there is evidence of people using my pool and hot tub at night when we are asleep or away. I find beer cans, cigarette butts, and even a used condom. I figure it has to be entitled mom and or her brats. So I install cameras on the grounds and start videotaping. Sure enough, I catch entitled daughter a few others hanging out in my pool Friday nights when my wife and I are out. Friday nights, she goes to a friend's house for movies and wine, and I play Warhammer 40K or card games. I figure they must have been waiting for us to leave and then threw them in a party, or were quietly swimming while we slept. I discussed it with my wife and decide to teach entitled mom and her brats a lesson. The next Friday night, I park my car a street over and my wife does the same. We wait in the dark house to see if any of them come over. Entitled daughter and I assume her boyfriend, entitled son and I assume his girlfriend, and 4 other teen couples come right over and start skinny dipping in my pool and hot tub. Why a bro and sis would do that together still bothers me. They have beer and I can smell the weed from inside the house. I wait 4 to 5 minutes for them to get really into their fun, and 2 are actually having sex in my pool. Then I spring my trap. I go out with my rifle Ruger Mini 14 with 20-round magazines for you gun enthusiasts like me, pointed at the ground but at the ready. When I reach the pool, My wife flips on the back lights, and I yell for them to freeze or I'll shoot. My wife calls the police meanwhile. They all have the deer in the headlights look on their faces, and not one of them tries to speak for a good minute. The entitled daughter starts to tell us that she has permission to be there, and that we need to let them get dressed. I tell them that if they move towards me or their property, that I would consider them to be charging me or reaching for a weapon and I'd shoot. They must have believed me, not being a total jerk. I say that I will throw them all their clothing. I then walk over to their piles of clothing, phones, and purses, and throw everything into the pool. They freak out trying to save their phones and other goods. After 10 minutes, the police show up, and they have the kids climb out of the pool wearing their soaked clothes and trying to shake their phones dry. I show the police the videos from our cameras, the no trespassing signs, and explain to them that I had told them and their mother they were persona non grata. The kids were arrested for trespassing, possession of a controlled substance, underage drinking, and indecent exposure. The police recommended that next time I leave the gun in the safe and let them just come and get them. I told them that I thought they may attack my wife and had to stand my ground. I proved that I never pointed it at them with the videos, so I couldn't be charged with anything. As the kids are being loaded into the police cruisers, entitled mom shows up yelling at the police and my wife and me. She demands that the police let them go and even tries to open the door on one of the cruisers. The police threaten her with being arrested if she doesn't back off and leave my wife and I alone. I later found out that the charges against the teens were reduced and they all took plea deals. They all got community service, fines, and were put on probation. We got a restraining order against entitled mom and her brats, so they couldn't bother us again. I sent a bill to entitled mom for the cost of draining, disinfecting, and refilling my pool and having a professional cleaning service clean up the kids' mess. The bill was for about $400. I had my parents' attorney send it to entitled mom with a letter stating that if it was not paid in 30 days, then we would sue her for a larger amount. She sent a check to my attorney, and thankfully it did not bounce. About a year later, the entire entitled family moved away, and we never heard from them again. Last one is titled, Let me rant really quick. I live in a duplex with my family. We live in the front, and they live in the house in the back. We also share driveways, and we've lived here for about 5 years. We're currently in a legal dispute with the landlord because she constantly took advantage of my mom and even made racist remarks towards her, and she tried to illegally evict us. Her nephew lives in the back duplex, and he has a bunch of weird men and women in and out, and they park in our driveway. One of the guys yelled at my 50-year-old mother for asking them to only park on their side of driveway and not block our side. He cussed her out and drove off like a maniac. They are a bunch of 30 or 40-year-old men who seemingly never left their fraternity in college because they spend their time drinking and playing pool and loud music blaring through our walls. This Monday morning, it's 2:30 a.m. I was woken up at 1:30 a.m. by their loud music, and I asked them to turn it off, and the guy said I'll turn it down. I said okay, did turn it down, and now it's blaring again. It bleeds through the wall, and this is the cherry on top of other issues we have them, such as all their garbage like broken glass bottles or mattress and boxes they left out on the street. They've had the fire department call on them because of a bonfire they try to have in their backyard full of grass and one big tree that can catch fire. They've had the city call on them, and also the police has been called for domestic abuse. I'm not good at dealing with anger, and I've been trying to channel the anger through a legal and civil discourse, but they are absolutely pea-brained and liars. They have no respect for anyone, and I feel like I get tired of being so upset. We are moving in 2 months, so God bless, but it's just so uncomfortable. And when my brother's home and he says something, they're like, yes, sorry bro, my bad. But when it's myself or my mom, they just ignore us. I feel so uncomfortable and unsafe. I called the police for the music. The line is that's not an emergency line, and the police came out, and that only encouraged them to party harder. I keep telling myself to stop overreacting, but I think my reaction is fair. Thanks for listening.